Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 131, featuring the top 5 one-off guest stars. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we're expanding our very fun one-off series by diving into our top 5 one-off guest stars, and that is a huge canvas in Star Trek. It's an actor or guest star who appeared in Star Trek just one time. So they played one character one time. So we'll get into what all that means in our diagnostic cycle. But first, let's introduce our guest tonight, returning for her 9th overall appearance on TrekRanks. It is Star Trek podcasting legend. I said it, Charlynn. Welcome back, Char.
Oh, you flatter me. Hello. Thank you for having me back once again.
I am glad to have you. And our second guest tonight is making his first appearance on TrekRanks, but I promise it will not be a one-time only appearance. We're excited to have him on. It's Peter Hong. Welcome, Peter.
Hello. Hey, Jim. Hey, Charlynn. Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's great to be here.
First appearance. Woohoo.
Yes. Thrilled to have you on. So I actually heard this recently, Peter, on First Flight, but give us your quick Trek origin story, your background on how you got into Trek, what your favorite series is, what you've seen, because we always like to do that with our first-time guests. So what's your backstory?
Sure. Well, I got into Star Trek when I was in high school. I joined the astronomy club in high school, but it turns out everybody was the Star Trek fan except me. I didn't really know much about it. I didn't hear of it. So in order to, get up to speed, because all the club meetings ended up being Star Trek discussions and episode discussions and theme discussion meetings, I ended up watching a lot of TOS, because back then in the 80s, it was just TOS. But that was the series I grew up on. And even though my fandom has sort of ebbed and flowed, it's always been my number one fandom. My favorite series is Deep Space Nine, with TOS being a very close second. I'm a completist, so I've watched all the episodes from all the series. However, I have a bit of a rusty on the Voyager and some gaps in DS9. I haven't watched those since they were initially broadcast. I joined Twitter in April of 2020, and I discovered Trek Twitter. So that allowed me to, connect with all these different great, friendly Trek fans, and sort of added more depth and more breadth to my Star Trek fandom. And I also host the Star Trek Book Club on Twitter with Trekkie Rob, and we discuss Star Trek books every 6 weeks or so. Mm-hmm.
I love that. I forgot about that. So yeah, Trekkie Rob's been on a couple of times. Need to get him back on. And I love that astronomy story. That just makes way too much sense.
Love it.
A bunch of Trek dorks in the astronomy club wanting to just talk about.
It was just all Trek, hardly any astronomy.
So it's a Star Trek club.
It was astronomy in name only.
So about Wolf 359. Okay.
Right.
All right. Let's do this. Let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration.
What are you recalibrating? Everything. It's a sweeping, a recalibration of all systems.
As regular listeners will know by now, general order number 1 of the TrekRanks charter is that we love Trek, and we love to rank Trek via some deep dive topics just to get the conversation started. And remember, it's not about the ranks. That's just our excuse to talk about Star Trek. And as Mr. Spock himself has said many times, our show is all about
infinite diversity in infinite combinations, symbolizing the elements that create truth and beauty.
No wrong answer. It's not about being right or definitive in any way. It's about sharing the things we love about Trek. We love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through Enterprise and the Kelvin timeline, now Discovery and Short Treks and Picard and Lower Decks and Star Trek Prodigy. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Ooh, that's becoming a mouthful now.
I know, it's so long. And we're gonna have to add another one soon with Strange New Worlds.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through 830 episodes of Star Trek, which currently translates through the first complete half season of Star Trek Prodigy and through the first 10 episodes of Star Trek Discovery's 4th season. And one final reminder that we use episodes as a shorthand term, but the 13 films are always in play as well. Hopefully someday there'll be 14.
Have boosted power to the communications bandwidth.
And we appreciate that, Mr. Kim, where you can find TrekRanks on Subspace at TrekRanks.com. You can contact me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. You can also call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, Charlynn and Peter, let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Charlynn.
Sure. The best place to find me is on Twitter. My handle is the Profanity. And from there, you can find out if I am doing podcasting things or live streaming things or whatever the heck it is I'm up to that day.
And more good cat content there.
Cat photos as well. Yes, definitely.
And Peter, so this is why I always defend Twitter, Peter, because people, once you find that Star Trek Twitter and find that sweet spot of all the interaction, it's fantastic. So I love hearing that. So what's your Twitter handle?
Sure. My Twitter handle is at PeterTrek1, the number 1. I can also be reached at Trek Book Club as well.
Oh, that's right. On Twitter. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we are ready to activate our level 1 diagnostic to get into this show.
Run a level 1 diagnostic series. Come.
So a couple of key things to go through quickly in this diagnostic cycle. First, this is our 5th topic in our one-off series. And I like to rattle off lists. So previously we've done one-off villains, heroes, romances, and Klingons. Klingons was an awesome episode. And now we're doing guest stars. Second, as always, we're going to be pretty strict. We're going to try and make sure it's just one-off guest stars. There could be some tricky ones who maybe appeared more than once. Of course, if they appeared as a character in a 2-parter, that's fine. And yeah, it's just any actor that has appeared in Star Trek just one time. So do your research, and hopefully we'll get a perfect score tonight with our 15 picks. But who knows? And third, and this is a new twist for TrekRanks, we are actually going to call this episode Top 5 One-Off Guest Stars version 1.0, because I'm getting ahead of it for the first time, and I know this topic is so huge. There's so many options. I've decided this is going to be the first recurring topic in TrekRanks history. So at some point down the road, we're going to do the exact same top 5 one-off guest stars version 2.0 and 3.0. And we'll make sure that no one on those shows picks anybody from previous episodes, because there's just so many. This is my problem. When I was in my Prime Directive, I was like, there's too many. This is crazy. And we say that a lot on TrekRanks, but this time I'm getting ahead of it. I am going to, and I'm the one that's going to benefit from this, not you guys. You still can only pick 5, but I can pick 5 and be like, I could pick another guy later down the road.
So you're going to shuffle based on our picks? Is that what you're going to do?
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not that prepared. We will have duplicates if we do, but I know that I've got some in the back pocket that, in a few months, we might do this topic again, version 2.0. I'm excited. This is just a great topic to keep alive, I think, because there's just so many to talk about. And I think it's going to be fun. Okay, that's what my plan is. So I'm probably the only one that cares about that. Anyway, I
think it's awesome.
All right. Okay, let's get into our Prime Directive.
But what you're proposing is exactly the kind of tampering the Prime Directive prohibits.
Okay, Charlynn, we're going to start with you. How did you define your Prime Directive and finalize your picks and narrow this down? Because it's big.
Well, let me say, this list was long and had some of the most painful cuts I've ever had to make for TrekRanks. I mean, just immediately when you sent me the DM, I started thinking of who would make this list. What's interesting to me is the majority of the people who stayed on my list were those very first candidates, but I did sort through and really try to comb through Trek lore just to make sure I wasn't forgetting anybody. And I have so many honorable mentions in this one as a result. And ultimately, performances that I'm about to discuss are because they are memorable in some way, had a lasting impact in some way, meant something important either to Star Trek lore or maybe personally, or just because it's a fun fact.
I love it. I'm going to cut to the chase. That's exactly my Prime Directive. Long list, and then just no set theme. It was just like I have just a bunch of different reasons for picking certain ones, and then I had the back pocket of being like, okay, I can talk about that person in 6 months when we do this again.
There you go.
So Peter, how about you? How did you break this down?
I actually had a similar experience as with both of you as well. It was a long list, and there was just so many different options. And I think that was a credit to the long history and all the memorable guest stars that we've had over the decades. A couple of things I did try to do is I picked from 5 different Trek series. And it was actually a tough cut, and that'll come up, I think, at Secretary Systems, that I tried to have, one guest star from each series just to sort of spread the discussions a little bit. I also, to help cut it down a little bit more, I ended up not selecting the multi-part episodes because there was a couple there as well. But I said, you know what, let me try to do a literal, one time appearance. So I did that. And as it turns out, it actually, similar to Charlynn, the 5 that were the top, the finalists ended up being either, one of my top favorite episodes, or something unique about it, memorable, or just something that gravitated me towards that story or character. So that's kind of how it all worked out. Yeah,
I appreciate that you cut down the 2-parters, because I did think about that for a while, and then I eliminated that because that's a little bit more literal, that it's they're in exactly one episode and not. And I got a few 2-parters on my list. So
I was going to ask Jim, how much are you going to cheat in this one? Because I know you love to bend the rules.
Okay, so I do. I have one cheat coming, but it's a tweak on that. It's not 2 appearances, although it isn't a 2-parter. So there are some 2-parters on my list, but that's not cheating. That's totally legit. And yes, Peter, I love that. I love how you broke it down. That's a great way to do it. The 5, trying to do one per the 5 legacy series is super cool. Although it gets tougher now that there's 11 series now. So,
yeah, it is a little bit harder.
It's crazy.
Especially the newer ones. I had a little bit of a challenge, but I came up with something. So.
I love it. Okay, I think we are ready now. Let's do it. First Kudecaton, introduce us to the new order of things. By the way, First Kudecaton, played by Scott Thompson Baker, is a one-time guest star on Star Trek.
Hey!
Let's do
it! Nice.
It'll be alphas like us that determine the future of this quadrant. That will be the new order of things.
Thank you, First Kudecaton, and as always, just a quick reminder on how we're going to go through the order of things. First, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our one-off guest star and the specific reasons we're highlighting it in the episode in which they appeared. And at the end, we'll ask everyone for a few secondary systems picks for the selections that just missed our list. And as always, if you have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Okay, Charlynn, let's start with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 one-off guest stars?
Well, let me preface this. Already.
Cheating.
Maybe, but no, this episode that I'm going to have for my number 5 pick actually had 2 people I was thinking of as a one-hit wonder guest star on Star Trek, but I had to pick one. So my 5 words are, you're a real freakosaurus. Hashtag breakfast is up. It's Sarah Silverman from Future's End.
I love it. Hey, Agent Tuvok, what's up?
So very 90s. I love that they captured the essence of the mid 90s in this episode. It kind of freaks them out when, honestly, a lot of what we see in the Star Trek universe, if we did not know if it was Star Trek, would freak us out for sure. And her character is that person. She can't believe that a disruptor would just vaporize somebody. And what the heck did that thing in Tuvok's pants do to her computer? I mean, as far as she's concerned, that's magic. And I just think she turns in a fantastic performance.
Hey, I do the planetarium show Tuesday nights. So, you guys should come by, check it out, bring your friends. The best stars in Hollywood are right above us.
And this was long before I knew who Sarah Silverman was. I don't know about you guys.
Well, I knew her as a stand-up comedian when she was on, and she was on Saturday Night Live, but this is her first, I'm pretty sure it's her first acting credit.
Oh, okay.
I love her. I love this pick because she was awesome in the Larry Sanders Show, and a bunch of stuff. There's Something About Mary. She is hilarious. She's great. And
and she's done tons of stuff since Voyager for sure.
Yeah, she's had her own show. This is a no-brainer pick. I love it. And yeah, I was just barely aware of her. So when she was on, I was like, oh, this is that stand-up comedian that I've seen. Peter, how about you? What's your take on Sarah Silverman?
Sure. Actually, I was thinking of her as well before I refined it with the two-parter from Directive. But I remember her, and I was thinking, she was a good sort of stand-in for the audience, someone who is just as puzzled and a little bit, a little nervous, a little scared, it's just everything, all the emotions of seeing the Voyager crew, with all this, future tech and all these adventures. So it was a good role that she had, and that was one of the positive aspects of Futures and of that episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only it's such a great episode, but her character is so memorable. It's been 25 years. It still feels fresh. Every time you watch it, it just feels fresh. I love it. That's an awesome pick. Great start. I love Sarah Silverman. Hilarious comedian. Peter, how about you? What's your number 5 pick?
Okay. 5 words and a hashtag. Betty Boop and funny face. Hashtag. It's Taco Tuesday. My number 5 pick is Aldous Hodge.
Man, this is a great pick.
Nice.
He played Kraft in the short track season 1, episode 2, Calypso. So I was trying to find somebody from the current Trek TV shows, and it was a little bit harder because of the serialized structure of some of the shows. So, a lot of guest stars did return again. So Calypso is my favorite short Trek episode. And Aldous Hodge, who played Kraft, it was just a very memorable performance. I mean, it was short. It was only about 18 and 19 minutes or so. But we saw him being adrift and then being rescued by Zora. At that time, we didn't know much. Now it's interesting how, we learn more about Zora subsequently in seasons 3 and 4. But back then, she was still a relatively new character, and it was in the future, and we didn't know what was, all this time thing. But now it makes a little bit more sense. So he had, thinking about his family, developing a friendship with her, trying to do something nice to her because she was, helping him. So, and then eventually she kind of let him go and try to find out, where, so he can go back home. It was just a very, very good episode.
This is an awesome pick, Peter. I did not think of this one. I love Aldous Hodge. He was great in Leverage back in the day. Really fun, dynamic actor. And this is my favorite short Trek too. He's so good in it.
Mine too.
He's so good in it. So powerful.
And it's just the two of them. It's really. I mean, a lot of the short Treks are just small. A small cast, but it's just the two of them. It's poignant. It's seeing how Zora, being alone for so many years and finally seeing somebody, but then he has trying to find his way home. So it was really good for such a especially it's a great episode.
And I'll always add that it's the longest short Trek, so it's like 18 minutes. This is the longest of the short Trek. Okay. All right, anything to add there, Charlynn?
I'm just so glad that short Treks made somebody's list. Yeah, and then it was Calypso. That's my favorite as well, and it's such a good performance. Fantastic choice.
And I also love the point you made, Peter, about it's tougher to find some of the one-off guest stars in the new series because they're serialized more, which is a great point. That is legit.
Very much.
I can't remember her name right now, but you couldn't even pick Admiral F-Bomb because she came back.
Admiral F-Bomb. Right, because she's in other episodes. Yeah, exactly. And what sheer effing hubris that is.
So good. All right, let's go to my round 5 pick. 5 words and a hashtag. This is a deep cut, but a big time guest star. I love it. 5 words and a hashtag. Picard and Data's Klingon foil hashtag was told I could listen at a reasonable volume. And it is Stephen Root, the great Stephen Root, in his only Star Trek appearance as Captain Kavada in Unification from TNG, a 2-parter. He's the Klingon captain that's ferrying Picard and Data to Romulus, where they can go undercover. And if you don't know who Stephen Root is, you do know. He is a character actor that is in literally everything. He was Milton on Office Space. I was told I could listen at a reasonable volume. You cannot move my desk again. I will set the place on fire. He was on News Radio. I loved him on News Radio. Barry, Justified, Boardwalk Empire. He's been on 24, Seinfeld. He's done a million things. Stephen Root, just a great, dynamic, funny, just hypnotic actor. And I love him. And his part is kind of small, but I really love the scene where he's telling Picard, like, this is your bed. We don't soften our bodies by putting down a pad. And Picard's like, good, I prefer it that way. This is a military ship. We don't serve Federation food. Great, I haven't had live Gah in a while.
It may not be what you're used to on a Starfleet ship.
Quite nice, thank you.
Captain Cathada, is this the captain's quarters or my own?
Both. We have limited space. We are a military ship, not a pleasure craft.
Of course, this will be fine.
You will sleep Klingon style. We do not soften our bodies by putting down a pad.
Good. I prefer it that way.
You will take your meals with us. But we do not serve Federation food.
I've been looking forward to Gah. Haven't had it for quite a while. Very fresh.
Well, Captain, we're at the border of the neutral zone. You mean to do this, do you?
Yes, I do.
So just a fun scene. I love Stephen Root. Just love the fact that he was in Star Trek and it was just this one time. So, Charlynn, what's your take on Stephen Root?
Oh, heck yeah. Love it. Did not think about this pick at all. So I'm so glad that you did. That's one of the joys of Trek Ranks is people thinking of things that you just can't get to. And I love Office Space. So,
I mean,
how did I not think about it? But I'm so glad you did.
Office Space is one of the all-time great films. Peter, are you aware of Stephen Root much as an actor?
No, not really. I saw Office Space once many years ago, so I haven't seen that since.
Well, if you remember the guy with the red stapler, he's the guy with the I know there's a thing. I do remember the red stapler because it was on it's on sale a lot. Yeah, right, of course.
Yeah.
Stores.
They had to make them after this movie.
And he was also his first big role was on News Radio, which a sitcom that not necessarily top of mind for thinking back 30 years now, but man, he was funny on that show as the big body annoying owner of the radio station. Okay, let's go to round 4. Charlynn, what do you got?
All right, my 5 words are food, 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 food. # handsome. Mcfleetwood as an what is it? I forget the name of the race.
No way.
In TNG's Manhunt.
No way. That's so funny. I had no idea where you were going with your 5 words.
Okay, well, I had to go with food, food, food because that is roughly half the lines he says the entire time he is in this role.
Wait, hold on a second. Are they literally saying food, food, food? I had no idea.
Yeah, after they wake up from being in stasis from traveling, they're just like, I'm so hungry.
Yeah,
food,
I thought
food,
it was just like
food.
they were just making like a weird alien noise. I didn't realize they were saying.
It sounded like food to me, and if I'm wrong, correct
who
me,
knows?
folks.
I don't know. This is fantastic.
But okay, so Mcfleetwood, of all the people to be a guest star on Star Trek, like that just like is a total wild card out of the blue kind of thing, in my opinion, because he's from Fleetwood Mac. That's why everybody knows him, but he's never really done a whole lot of like acting and didn't seem like much of a Star Trek fan necessarily, but here he is. And you would think, since he's got so much power behind his name, that they would give him some substantial part or at least show his face in some memorable scene or something for marketing hype. And no, they do the exact opposite. He's downright unrecognizable in all of that makeup and the costuming. He doesn't even get to move for the first half of his performance. And then, like I said, he only gets a few lines at best, the most substantial one being food. food.
Oh my God.
And then he pops his face into this weird seafood looking like tank and pretends to eat it.
I can't stop laughing because this is like one of those unspoken things. I've thought this a million times in the 30 years since I found out Mcfleetwood was this weird Antedian creature. But
it's just such a cool random Trek fact.
Totally
I love
is,
it.
but I've never said it out loud. Like, why is he this unrecognizable character in the most crazy makeup? It's a fantastic makeup job and costuming. And he's only on for a split second. He's maybe not a split second, but he's unrecognizable. He doesn't do anything. He just stands there and apparently tries to slurp up food. This is brilliant. I can't stop laughing. Too funny.
And Worf thinks he's very handsome.
Yes, he does. A very handsome race. I love this pick. Peter, what's your take on the Antedians from Manhunt?
Yeah, actually, I remember when I first watched it back in the day, when I saw the credits, it was something like Mcfleetwood.
Right.
There was a reference to him. Then I was wondering, like, where is he? I don't think I didn't remember seeing him. So I think it hit me later, or maybe during a rewatch on the reruns, that he was in costume he was like fully masked and you didn't really see his face. I said, oh, well, given he's such a, popular singer, that hopefully, they would have, made him a little bit more recognizable. So but yeah, it's kind of funny that they did that.
At risk of spoiling anybody else's pick, at least John Tesh, when he was on in the second season of TNG, was a Klingon and was stabbing Worf with a paint stick. Okay.
And you could at least see his face.
He's a Klingon. So. Classic. Okay. Peter, what's your number 4 pick?
Okay, 5 words and a hashtag. Oh, drat, fade to black.
Oh.
Hashtag, we don't succumb to fear. My number 4 pick is Michael Mckeon, who played the clown in Voyager Season 2, Episode 23, The Thaw.
Fantastic. So good.
I can't contain my excitement. Yes.
It's the best. The best.
Yeah, it's pretty creepy. It's the episode in which Harry and B'Elanna ended up in essentially a manifestation of fear in this virtual reality in which the clown, sort of the leader of all these people there, that was created by the computer. And it was just a very memorable role. It was, scary. He had this wide range of personality. So he was, definitely scary. He was very happy, and especially in the beginning when he was, thought he was winning. But then it just runs a whole gamut of emotions. And then especially towards the end when he realized he's lost. So that ending of the episode is actually my favorite Star Trek conclusion across the franchise. I just like the way how that was all set up and how at the end he was just saying, I'm afraid. And then Janeway, or the hologram, says, I know. And then he said, what will happen? What will become of me? And so like all fear, you'll eventually vanish. And then he says, I'm afraid. He says, I know. And then he says, trapped. And then it sort of fades to black. So it's just a very memorable role. And a little bit of a trivia and some more like related to the episode rather than the character. But it turns out some of the background actors that's part of the cast were Cirque du Soleil members. From the performing art. Definitely makes sense given what they were doing there. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. All right, well, awesome pick. I love Michael Mckeon. I did think about this one, and then somehow he kind of fell off my list, so he wasn't on my long list. So I'm glad you thought of him. He is a legend, literally from Laverne and Shirley to Spinal Tap to Better Call Saul. What an absolute legend Michael Mckeon is. I love it. Shar, I know you love this pick.
Absolutely. I love just about anything Michael Mckeon does. He just always turns in such an amazing performance, no matter what kind of character he's playing. And this is a bit of a departure, I would say, for him, just a little bit. And the performance is so memorable.
I love it. Drat. Let's go to my number 5 pick. Another TV legend. Here we go. 5 words and a hashtag. Sorry, the card says moops. Hashtag You can't double dip a chip. That's like putting your whole mouth in the bowl. And of course, it is Jason Alexander, Kuros from Think Tank,
Yay,
and Seinfeld fame. And I love this pick because we are right on the cusp of him not being eligible for this list. I mean, we're so close because Jason Alexander is about to become a Star Trek regular cast member on Star Trek Prodigy.
Oh, that's right.
When the second half of the first season returns, and you actually see his character at the end of A Moral Star Part 2 when Janeway is on the Dauntless heading to go get Chakotay. His character is in the back, a Tellurite standing on the bridge, but he doesn't have any lines. So I was like, I better pick him now because I'll never be able to pick him later.
Yeah.
So Jason,
good for you for realizing that and squeezing it in.
Yeah, we just got him under the wire. He's going to play Dr. Noom, a Tellurite doctor, which is actually a really cool idea to say the least. I mean, that'll be something different.
Heck yeah.
And Think Tank, man, it just keeps coming up in the last 10 episodes. It's like the third time. I think prior to that, I don't think it ever came up. So awesome episode. And I'm just going to say, I love this performance. I think there's people who don't rate it, but his quiet, unique, spooky, kind of subtle delivery on everything to me is a brilliant portrayal. And it's a brilliant way for him to play against what he had a real difficult typecasting coming out of Seinfeld as George Costanza. So he had a tough time getting people to look at him in any way other than as good old George Costanza. So I love this. I think it's a great performance. And again, bottom line, the card says moops. Okay. There's like 10 people who get that reference. Anyway, Peter, what's your take on Jason Alexander?
Yeah, no, it's a great pick. I remember watching Think Tank, and I watched a little Seinfeld. I'm not a big fan, but I've seen it, and I realized, that's very different than, than George. I said, okay, interesting. So it was interesting. I mean, I like the Think Tank, sort of the concept and, his role as Kuros and, what they were talking about and how, again, sort of Janeway sort of turned the tables at the end as well. So, but I think because, like you said, he was playing against character, it was a little different. But I think that was great to have him bring on board. And I remember he had I think that was the episode that addressed the Vidians.
Oh yeah, is that right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, because they were earlier in the series, and then we left that area of space, and then it was nice that even though it was really more of a quick line, a line or two reference, but it was nice that he mentioned.
I like that line, but it always makes me think: do you believe him? Did they really do it? I don't know that they really did it.
Yeah,
Char,
you probably wouldn't put him past
your take on Kuros and Think Tank?
I always took that at face value. Now I'm second guessing.
Sorry, I always think you could be lying. This guy's a player.
He could be. This is a great pick. It's on my secondary systems. It was one of those painful cuts that I didn't want to do, but then honestly, I would have had so many Voyager picks if I wanted to just keep some of these. I really did try to vary it just a little bit, so that not everybody was from Voyager, because of course that's that's the top of my brain because it's all embedded in there. So I'm glad you picked it, and I'm glad for the reason that you picked it, Jim. Yeah. That's just so freaking clever.
It's cool. I mean, literally the next episode of Prodigy, he's probably going to be a regular character. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, probably.
Cool. Okay, let's go to the soup round.
And now, as I'm sure that somebody out there has said, it's time to pay for the soup.
Charlynn, what's
for
your
you.
number 3? Oh, great callback. I love it.
Speaking of Seinfeld.
Excellent.
So my number 3, my 5 words are, but you're the Picard. # Bronze Age Vulcans. And it's Catherine Keith Scott as Nuria in TNG's Who Watches the Watchers.
You're gonna make me cry. I love her so much. Nuria is one of my favorite all-time characters.
I love her too so much. She was one of the very first people that I thought of as a candidate for this list. And so I had to get on Memory Alpha and make sure that Catherine Keith Scott didn't play any other roles on Star Trek. I was so relieved that this was her only role.
That's so cool.
Just for the sake of this list. Like, honestly, come back anytime. You're great. But for the sake of the list here, for such a memorable character, she just knocks it out of the park, makes this episode so significant. Like, after you watch it, man, it makes you think about so many things, about how people see you and how you are seen by other people and what that might mean and how it comes across. Just so much good stuff.
Perhaps one day my people will travel above the skies.
Of that, I have absolutely no doubt.
I'm speechless. I did not think of her. I think if I had, I probably would have assumed she had played another role as well somewhere, because she's so good in this. And oh man, and she does have that kind of Carolyn Seymour vibe about her, who played the actress who played Marasty.
Good call.
They have a similarity there, so this did not pop up. But I'm just going to say it. And I mean, Nuria is one of my favorite all-time characters. I just love her so much. I've picked Who Watches the Watchers many times on this show. So, Peter, what is your take on Nuria?
Yeah, it's a very good pick. I remember watching it, when I first saw it, seeing her, and I think she was the one who was up in the Enterprise observation deck, right, or the observation room.
Yes,
and
she was talking
sort
with Picard.
Talking with Picard, right, and then she was kind of seeing the planet from outer space, and just having sort of a lot of different emotions and beliefs all kind of colliding right around that time, throughout the whole story. So I think she handled it pretty well.
Yeah, it's so beautiful when he's explaining, like, how do you kill a buck? Have you always done it that way, or did you learn to fashion a bow and arrow and all these things? And you think he's getting through, and then at the end, when she's like, okay, but now can you fix our crops and bring...
She's really trying. Exactly. I think she gets there.
It's really, really
She's
good.
such a good leader, though. She
leader.
Takes in all of this information and manages to at least process it to some extent, and enough to convince her people.
Exactly right.
Too.
It's fantastic. Yeah. It's such a well-written character, but so believable. Love it. Okay. Peter, what's your number 3 pick?
Okay, my number 3 pick. 5 words. He knows, Jim. He knows. Hashtag, it's time to pay for the soup.
Yo!
Look at what you did.
This is going to be the tearful round. Oh my God. I just remembered my...
Forget the soup.
I just looked ahead of my 3rd pick. This is the tearful round. Keep going, Peter.
Oh, man.
It is. Yeah, my number 3 pick is Joan Collins, who played Edith Keeler in TOS's season 1, episode 28, The City on the Edge of Forever. So this actually is my favorite episode of Star Trek across the franchise. So that's one of the reasons why, is just her performance as Edith Keeler. She's optimistic, positive, insightful, and wanting to help others, runs the mission. Just very, very strong character. And interesting, I didn't realize this I forgot until the rewatch, was that she actually comes in around 20 minutes into the episode. So her role is just within the last half hour or so, when Kirk and Spock meet her. So then she had that speech where the hashtag "it's time to pay for the soup" comes from, where she talks about astronauts and exploration and space travel. And then there was one of my favorite lines is actually her comment when Spock asked her, like, where do you think we belong? And she said, oh, you at his side, as you've always been there and always will. So just this nice, insightful comment on this Kirk-Spock relationship.
Another one similar to that is when he says something and she adds "Captain." Even when you don't say it, he says it. It's so great. It's so great. She's amazing. Yeah. I love that you picked this. I made the conscious choice not to pick it this time, but I was definitely, she was really, really high up on my list. She's a legend. She's still with us. Joan Collins is still with us. It's incredible. Amazing career and performance. And just, God, this is the most memorable episode of Star Trek. I freaking love it so much.
Yeah, I think that that scene at the end is actually my favorite scene of Star Trek. That at the end, so it's like a sad scene. So
the execution and the direction is so perfect.
Yeah, right, exactly. How it all comes together.
Okay, here we go to so we had said this was the crying round. The tearful round, and it is. I can't believe my number 3 pick is right there with these other two. 5 words and a hashtag. Legendary career begins in Trek. Hashtag now Oscar nominated And it is little Kirsten Dunst, Hedrill, from the TNG episode Dark Page, the telepathic species. And I love this one. I'm really glad to pick it because I like to highlight this character really for a bunch of reasons. So first, I love Dark Page. I think it's super underrated. It crushes me every time I see it. The performances are amazing, especially Majel Barrett's just incredible in it. Second, Kirsten Dunst crushes it as this adorable little girl, and it's really, I just love thinking that here's this girl was in an episode of Star Trek and starting her career as, I don't know how old she was, probably 10. And her career just kept going and going. She's in everything. She's got an incredible career from, Bring It On, the cheerleader movie, to Fargo, the series. She was in Melancholia, which is a fantastic movie if you haven't seen it. Interview with the Vampire when she was a kid. She was Mary Jane in Spider-Man. And of course, now she is Oscar nominated for the first time for The Power of the Dog, which we are in the middle of Oscar season in 2022 as you're hearing this. So we don't know how that's going to play out. And then third, I just love that she's basically playing Kestra in this role because she reminds Lwaxana of her daughter that died so young. And then, of course, now we've seen Kestra as Troy's daughter in Star Trek Picard. And it just all to me that there's a bunch of synergy here.
Hedrill, I asked your father to bring you here because I wanted to talk to you about something. You know that Lwaxana's sick, don't you?
Yes. Is it my fault?
No, not at all. But I believe that she's been thinking about you. Do you know why?
I make her sad.
Why do you say that?
Because it's true.
Do you have any idea why Hedrill would make my mother sad?
No.
Well, thank you for coming to talk to us. I'll see you later, all right?
Counselor, I hope your mother gets better.
Thank you, Hedrill. So do I.
And I love it. I love it so much. So I picked Kirsten Dunst. Charlotte, what's your take on this one?
Cool. I'm glad you picked it. I'm so glad it made somebody's list. It was another cut.
Yep.
Yeah. I can't believe that she basically got her start on Star Trek and now has had this incredible career. And nobody, unless you're a Star Trek fan, would be any the wiser. You'd be like, Star what? She did what? Really?
Yeah, exactly.
She did? Yeah, she did.
She did. I think she did Interview with the Vampire like the year after this. So it's like they're almost like back to back on her.
Wow.
On her resume. So yeah, really her career just took off. Peter, what's your take on Kirsten Dunst?
Yeah, that's a nice pick. Dark Page is actually my favorite Lwaxana Troy episode.
Right. Cool.
So just like her, I know she was more of a comedic role at the beginning of TNG, and then later on towards the end of TNG and into DS9, it was a bit more serious. And this was one of the more serious ones. But I think she had a really good role, Lwaxana, and then Kirsten Dunst kind of helped develop.
Heal her.
Lwaxana that way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to round 2. Charlynn, what's your number 2 pick?
Hit those torpedoes. My 5 words are, I'm afraid, I know, drat, hashtag Janeway defeats fear. How can you not love Michael Mckeon as Fear and Janeway defeating fear and Cirque du Soleil gone awry? I mean, the bright colors are so TOS-esque. I just love everything about this episode. I know not everybody does, but shut it.
This is one of those episodes that I really admit, like first time I watched it, I did not like it. It was like the bottom of my list. And now I love it. I just think it's so underrated. It's brilliant. And by the way, it's
very different.
It's also terrifying. I mean, when he chops the head off of that guy, that is terrifying. That's like one of the most psychologically torturous scenes in Trek. So I love it. It's a great pick. Michael Mckeon, we love him. Peter, any quick final thoughts?
No, I think you summarized it pretty well. It was just one of my favorite lines when he was a simulated brain, when they were proposing another option for him, and he just made it this face, right. Which he didn't like. I'm not taking that. so
good.
But yeah, it's just a really good role.
All right, well, let's go to you, Peter. What is your number 2 pick?
Hey, my number 2 pick is 5 words and hashtag. Discovered spy leads to trial. Hashtag with the first link, the chain is forged.
Oh.
My number 2 pick is Gene Simmons.
I love it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, Gene Simmons. She played Admiral Nora Saty in TNG's Season 4, Episode 21, The Drumhead.
Fantastic pick. She was definitely on my secondary system.
Yeah. I think she, really a memorable role. She came on board. So she was nice and friendly, and worked with Picard and said that we can work together. We'll be able to get into the bottom of this. And then somewhere along the way, she just got more and more wrapped up in trying to find anybody to, and then she ended up having those classic scenes with Picard towards the end in the courtroom, and it was just called sort of verbal jousting when they were sort of going back and forth. She was bringing up the Borg, questioning Worf's loyalty, and then Picard was was quoting her father, Judge Aaron Saty, and that caused her to really kind of go. Have a meltdown. And it was just like, how dare you invoke my father's name? You undermine our very way of life. I will expose you for what you are. I've brought down bigger men than you. Picard. And it's one of these, everyone was silent. Everyone was just looking down. So it was just, I enjoyed that. And I like the Drumhead. It's one of my top episodes as well. It was just a very, very memorable role. And a little trivia, again, is that even though we didn't know it at the Drumhead, in All Good Things, it turns out that it was Admiral Saty who signed off on Captain Picard's assignment to the Enterprise D.
From All Good Things.
Oh.
Yeah.
From All Good Things. It was like one of the flashback flashback sections when Picard first arrived on the Enterprise D, and he read the order and it was signed. So I was like, oh, okay, interesting. Kind of made it this tie-in. So it gave a little bit more color and context on their how they worked together before.
Yeah, I love that little bit. And Gene Simmons, I mean, she is a legendary actor. I think not too many people in our generation know her, but I mean, she was Oscar nominated for like Hamlet way back in the day, and she's done a lot of Shakespeare, and really, really well known. So when she was on, it was kind of a big deal that she was on
at
the end of her career.
Yeah, I think she won a couple of Golden Globes. I was just checking her biography, and
I just remember her being Oscar nominated.
And she was Oscar nominated. She was in a few of the sort of the classic the Roman Greek, those types of movies that earlier. Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Those words were uttered by Judge Aaron Saty as wisdom and warning. The first time any man's freedom is trodden on, we're all damaged. I fear that day.
How dare you! You who consort with Romulans, invoke my father's name to support your traitorous arguments. It is an offense to everything I hold dear. And to hear those words used to subvert the United Federation of Planets. My father was a great man. His name stands for integrity and principle. You dirty his name when you speak it. He loved the Federation, but you, Captain, corrupt it. You undermine our very way of life. I will expose you for what you are. I brought down bigger men than you, Picard.
Charlynn, what's your take on Gene Simmons as Admiral Saty?
Such a good pick. And I'm sorry, every time I hear Gene Simmons, I do think of Gene Simmons of Kiss. Just gotta get that out there.
Understandable.
All of that said, this is a great pick. I wish I would have thought of it. It's not on my list. So awesome. Glad somebody did think of it. And it's a very memorable role. It's what we would now call a Badmiral role.
Yes.
And she holds nothing back. She's great.
Yep, she's a legend. That's a great pick. All right, let's close out round 2 with my pick. 5 words and a hashtag. Where is that funny man? Hashtag. What did the counselor say to the hologram? You're projecting. And it is Scott Thompson, not Scott Thompson Baker, or Scott Baker Thompson, who we mentioned earlier as Kudecaton. This is Scott Thompson, the Canadian comedian actor. He's playing Toman, the Kadi ambassador from Someone to Watch Over Me. And I actually mentioned him last week's episode as someone I was considering, and I went ahead and picked him. I love this guy. So this is the ambassador that is from a super conservative race. He's come on board Voyager, and as soon as his Abbott, his boss, leaves, he is just going to go on a bender, basically, with Neelix trying to keep him in line. And he just wants to eat everything and just taste everything and drink and party. And he does. And he does. And I picked this because I really like Scott Thompson. So he's a well-known Canadian actor. He was in Kids in the Hall, which is a hilarious show that I think a lot of people will know, some won't. It's, that Monty Python type ilk from Canada in the 80s. I loved it. And he was also on, he was on the Larry Sanders Show, Tracy Ullman. He's been in a bunch of stuff. And he's just a funny dude. And he is so good in this role. It always makes me laugh. I actually kind of almost, I'll deny this if anybody repeats it, I almost kind of like that part of it better than the other part of the Someone to Watch Over, which I know is really popular, and I love the whole episode, but he just always makes me laugh when he's just, I didn't see it coming, so it's just, and the acceleration of it in every scene where he's just worse and worse, and Neelix is trying to keep him under control is really, really funny for me for some reason. So anyway, I love it. Scott Thompson, great actor. Toman, the Kadi ambassador from Someone to Watch Over Me. Charlynn, what's your take?
Yeah, he does steal the show, doesn't he? It's in an already good episode. I wish I would have thought of this guy. Did not make my list. And I like Kids in the Hall, and I love Canadian TV. I've probably seen him in a whole lot of stuff. I didn't realize it was him. And I'm going to have to look him up because I really don't know that much about him.
Assimilate me, seven of mine. Peter, what is your take?
I didn't remember him, but then now that you mentioned it and explained it, I remember. Oh, he was just enjoying himself and just eating and just trying to. And I remember when I first watched it that it was pretty funny that that whole story. And that it's just watching him and how Neelix is trying to, keep him under control, but he was just going all out. So it probably could be, probably a little bit relatable sometimes when we're on vacation, or we're at a cruise, or we're at STLV, where we're just kind of going all out and just eating and just having a great time. So this is probably a little bit relatable, all of us, at least once in our lives.
Yeah, I think that's right. And bonus for me, because anything that subverts doctrine, I love. And this guy is subverting.
He did that all the time.
Neelix is like, oh, it's time for the third daily prayer. He's like, I'll do it later and ask for penance. It's so good.
In our society, males and females work separately, but I can see the wisdom of your approach. Promotes a more stimulating environment.
It's time for third prayer.
Yes, it is. But I think I can forego this service and perform the appropriate penance later. It's more important that I continue exploring your culture. Perhaps another dessert.
All right, let's go to round one.
Begin round one.
Charlynn, what's your number one pick?
Man, we got here fast. Too fast. Well, this pick hit number one right away for me and could not leave. She got locked into it. And it, of course, is Joan Collins as Edith Keeler. In The City on the Edge of Forever, my 5 words are "the day's worth living for" and # Edith Keeler must die.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole power of this episode, right? Is how wrong things can go if she doesn't get taken away from the world. How sad and tragic this is, because she is an incredibly memorable character, like the things that she's talking about, to the soup kitchen and the days worth living for, and just really everything about her. Though she is such an incredible judge of character, and she can just see right through Kirk and Spock and anybody, really.
Why? What is so funny about man reaching for the moon?
How do you know?
I just know, that's all. I feel it. And more, I think that one day they're going to take all the money that they spend now on war and death
And make them spend it on life.
Yes.
She's an incredible person. And if you knew a real life version of her, you would want to know her. You would want to be her friend. She's an incredible person and is really actually trying to do some good in the world. And Joan Collins, I can't say enough good things about her. She did a fantastic job with this one performance and made a one-time character like unforgettable, and I think it in large part is why The City on the Edge of Forever is so unforgettable as an episode, so memorable to everybody who's a Star Trek fan.
It's a big reason Star Trek is Star Trek. That this happened in the first season of Trek back in '67. It's legendary. She's the best.
Yeah, all the controversy about the script aside, it's still one of the best outings of Trek, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't put much into the controversy. That's self-made by one person, because the reality is that's TV. Guess what? Scripts are getting written all the time, and guess what? It's pretty good as it is. So, Peter, any final take on Joan Collins?
Yeah, I think one quick scene that Charlynn refreshed from memory was the scene that she had with McCoy, which was towards the end when McCoy, when he was thanking her, and she was saying, when you showed up here, you looked like you could use one. So that was just a nice, little interaction that she had thanking him, at the end. Yeah.
Man, do we need more people like Edith Keeler around these days?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, incredible.
And giving people hope.
Yep. Okay. Peter, what's your number one pick?
Okay, my number one pick is 5 words. What is his real name? # a file clerk with remorse.
Oh,
okay.
There we go.
Okay, my number one pick is Harris Yulin, who played Amin Maritza in DS9 Season 1, Episode 19, Duet.
Wow.
So this is really another, to me, a memorable performance. It was just essentially a lot of the back and forth that he had with Major Kira, kind of exactly who is he? What is his motive? Is he Goldar Heel? Isn't he Goldar Heel? Why is he doing this? So he was just, and it's part of the rewatch, especially in the brig when he was just having all these back and forth conversations with Major Kira. It was just very, very good performance. There was a couple of lines that kind of stood out when towards the beginning he said, in that case, I'll try to make my lies more opaque when Major Kira was trying to find out what, accusing him of was lying. And then he was saying, what you call genocide, I call a day's work. This is when everyone was thinking he was still Goldar Heel, and the head of the labor camp. So, but then towards the end, that really powerful scene when he was breaking down, when he was admitting that he, really was Maritza and then the file clerk, and that he could have done more then, but he didn't. He was, too afraid.
You're Amin Maritza, his filing clerk.
That's not true. I am alive. I will always be alive. It's Maritza who's dead. Maritza, who was good for nothing but cowering under his bunk and weeping like a woman. Who every night covered his ears because he couldn't bear to hear the screaming for mercy of the Bajoras.
He's willing to sacrifice, he's pretty much sacrificing his life in order to make that point. So it was just a, very memorable scene as well, when he was just, confessing what he was doing and why he was doing it. So, and that's my number one pick. Yeah.
This is very, very worthy number one. And speaking of controversy, so this is one that it's pretty well known that apparently he was either difficult on set or just, I have to get this, recheck it to get the story exactly right. I don't think he was unprepared, but that he was just not happy with the character of the script. And he was it sounds like he was super difficult. Ira Barris said that, which is fascinating because, again, as the writer of A City on the Edge of Forever was very difficult. This is an all-time classic episode. It's top 10 for me on DS9 TrekRanks. It is just perfection. Again, this is another one of those that always feels fresh when you watch it. I love it. Brilliant performance. I love that you picked it. Charlynn, what's your take?
Yeah, such a worthy number one pick. Very, very good. Memorable episode, memorable performance, breaks your heart. And side note, makes me think of another one-off character in Past Tense 1 and 2, the lady who works at the Sanctuary District.
Oh, I love her.
Okay. Tina Lifford as Lee. She is Lee. A one-time Star Trek guest star. I got a bonus in here.
She is.
Thank you, Memory Alpha. Yeah, it gets me thinking about that character and her background and the story she tells about letting the lady into the Sanctuary District because, I mean, what is she supposed to do?
I love that one. I love that one too.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, in some ways, there's a parallel with Duet there because there's so many people with different identities. She basically giving some people, she talks about somebody she gave a different identity to so they could get in.
Right.
And we might see more of Sanctuary Districts in Star Trek Picard as we
sure
get into
seems that
this
way.
second season. Super cool. All right. That is an awesome pick. I love it. Let's close out this awesome topic with my number one pick. So I was going to cheat, and you started off right away, Char, with the fact that there's one episode of Star Trek that has two one-off guest stars that probably are as good as any episode of Star Trek. For one-off guest stars, you've got Sarah Silverman as Rayne Robinson and the great Ed Begley Jr. as Henry Starling.
Yep.
So I was going to pick both, but I'm just going to pick one. And my 5 words in a hashtag: computers, burritos, and a freakosaurus hashtag. Breakfast is up. And so my pick now officially is Ed Begley Jr. as Henry Starling, who is one of the great villains in Star Trek history. I don't think he's underrated because I think people appreciate him, but he's still underrated because he's that good. He is nasty, he's mean, but when you talk about a villain that has a focus that you can kind of understand and see their side of it, not that we're agreeing with him because I love when Janeway calls him out. I'm like, you don't care about your own century. You don't care about my century. What do you care about? But he's just a nasty, interesting, layered villain. And I love him in this role. And listen to Ed Begley Jr. What a career. This guy, as an activist, environmental activist, and an actor, has been around. And this is a great callback to the Michael Mckeon. He had a recurring role in Laverne and Shirley way back in the 70s, and Starsky and Hutch and the original Battlestar Galactica. And he's also been in Better Call Saul, Curb Your Enthusiasm. And he's just in a bunch of stuff, Arrested Development and 6 Feet Under. He was in Blunt Talk with Patrick Stewart, which is a series that was on for a couple of years. So Ed Begley Jr. is a legend. I love Henry Starling. He is a serious badass villain who really pushes everyone to the limit. So that is my pick, Ed Begley Jr. Charlynn, what's your take?
So glad he made the top of your list. I was hoping somebody else would pick him since I went with Sarah Silverman.
Nice bookend with your pick.
Yeah. He is a legend. He has done everything. He's had such a cool career. He's played so many memorable roles on memorable shows, and Star Trek is just like a footnote in his career, in his body of work. Without a good actor turning in this performance, he could have been a very boring villain, the stereotypical mustache twirling villain. Oh, I'll get you. No, he's way more complex than that. You can understand his motives, even if you don't agree with him. And he's a bit of a menace.
Yeah.
So that makes it a lot of fun.
And he sells so well. I guess what I was trying to say is that it's hard to imagine someone in the 1990s matching up with our heroes from the 24th century and Janeway and everybody, but it makes sense. And he makes it really work where it's like, all of a sudden he's like, it looks like I've got the home field advantage with my 29th century technology. It's really, really well done. He's a great villain.
It's a good twist.
Great episode. Peter, what's your take?
Yeah, no, that's a great number one you got there. I remember, when I was watching that episode, how serious and how challenging he would be as a villain, for Janeway and the Voyager crew, because he was, very intelligent, but he was also ruthless, and he was, willing to do whatever he needed to do in order to, get what he wanted. So, between his pick and between Charlynn's pick with Sarah Silverman is really nice way of, tying up the conversation. Also, I wanted to thank him in that because of him, it was the mobile emitter that the doctor was getting. That's from.
Right.
Yeah, he got it from this episode, from his interaction with him. So and that allowed the doctor in subsequent seasons of Voyager to really get a little bit more different roles and different responsibilities and everything. So it kind of started from here.
Yeah, you did one thing right, Henry Starling.
Yeah.
What you said, Peter, they did a good job of. There was a couple of bait and switches where you're like, oh well, okay, they've got him now because it's Voyager. They got this 20th century guy, and then there's a little twist. It's really, really. It's just an awesome episode. It's definitely top 10 on Voyager TrekRanks. Okay, let's get into some secondary systems. Hopefully, you guys got a bunch.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
Char, what do you got?
Oh, yeah, I do. Let's see. Let's start off with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson in Voyager's Sunkotse.
Oh, that's a good one. I didn't think of that.
I really wanted to get him into the top 5, but he did not make it.
That's kind of a no-brainer. I need to make a mental note to put him in the album art for this show.
Yes.
And I think he also did his raised eyebrow in the show as well as The Rock. So he had to put that in there. Yeah.
Let's see. We have Jason Alexander Dunn, Melissa George as Vina in Disco's If Memory Serves.
That's an awesome pick. That's a
very memorable
one.
performance.
Wait, did she come back?
I looked it up. Apparently not.
No, just the one. Yeah, it was just.
Yeah, I had to double check too.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Ed Begley Jr., we got him. Kelsey Grammer as Captain Morgan Bateson in Cause and Effect. Stephen Hawking as himself in TNG's Descent.
That's a great one. Yeah.
That was on mine.
And Iggy Pop as Avorta in DS9's The Magnificent Ferengi.
Yep, Yelgren, he's fantastic.
And I really want to give a shout out to Rayne Wilson, who I really wanted to put on this list, but he was in 2 episodes of Disco, Choose Your Pain and Magic to Make the Sanest Man Go Mad.
And the short treks. So he's
and the short treks.
Yeah,
so
he's in 3.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, that is awesome. I love that Melissa George one because that's one of my favorite moments on Discovery. Like when Burnham's outside the shuttle, out of body, just watching it, and then she looks back at the shuttle and she sees this woman walking in, and I just like literally almost fell out of my chair, like, holy shit, is that Vina? Is she gonna see Vina?
Right?
It just never even crossed my mind that could happen, and it was exciting, and that was a great moment in Discovery. I love that pick.
Yeah.
Okay, Peter, how about you? What's on your list?
Okay, some secondary systems. I had Hallie Todd, who played Lal in TNG's The Offspring.
That's a good one.
Good pick.
Yeah, that one is actually that was the most difficult one. I was kind of, sort of switching it. It was on there and then it was off. And then I said, but I tried to get someone from every series. We also have Dean Stockwell, who played Colonel Grant in Enterprise's Detained. So this is the Quantum Leap reunion with Scott Bakula. I also have Stephen Hawking, who actually is the only person to play himself on Star Trek. So William Wyndham, who played Commodore Decker in TOS's The Doomsday Machine. So
what a good pick.
That's a fantastic one.
So I really like Doomsday Machine. It's like
and by the way, he's a big time character actor from the 60s. He's in a ton of stuff.
Yeah, he's in during that era. Have Rachel Robinson, who played Melanie in DS9's The Visitor.
Oh yeah, that's Andrew Robinson's daughter.
Yeah, Andrew Robinson and Ashley Judd from TNG's The Game.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yep. She was. Wait,
I think.
No, she was in more than one. She's in more than one.
Oh, was she in more than one?
Yeah, because she left. There was in a couple.
Oh yeah, right. She was on 2. Yeah, she was on 2. Okay. Yep. So you cross that, and then finally
we'll do 2 off guest stars later. So.
Okay. and then lastly, I had Keith Carradine. He was
I love that.
Robinson and First Flight. Right.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I thought I saw him in more, but then when I did check memory, I was like, he was in just the one. So kind of that sort of prequel to Enterprise.
Love it. That's spectacular. Yeah. Spectacular. All right, great list. So my list, I'm not going to read to you because I get to do this again sometime. So there's a bunch that you guys mentioned here. There's a few that did not. I am, though, going to give one special shout out. So earlier I picked Jason Alexander because he was right on the cusp of not being eligible anymore. Even closer to that on this list is Annie Wershing. So she's literally in 5 days no longer going to be eligible for this list because she's going to be in season 2 of Star Trek Picard that's dropping very shortly. Oh, actually, well, when we're recording, obviously this is going to come out a little bit later. So Annie Wershing started her acting career, and Annie Wershing, by the way, has been in a ton of genre shows, 24, Timeless, just a bunch of stuff. Incredible list of credits on IMDb. And she got her acting debut in Star Trek Enterprise in 2002 as Liana in the episode Oasis as Renee Auberjonois' daughter. Yeah, it's her first ever acting role or credit on IMDb. And now she's going to be the Borg Queen in season 2 of Star Trek Picard. So super cool. She's a great actor. Super cool.
I had no idea she was on Enterprise.
I know it's crazy, but I mean, we've all seen her in a million things, and it doesn't have like a household name, but I think I don't know, every year I think it gets a little bit more household because she really does play a lot of great characters. Great. I love this topic. Fantastic. Awesome deep dive. Let's get into our regeneration cycle and recap our picks and go through some stats.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Charlynn, recap your picks.
Sure. Number 5 was Sarah Silverman in Voyager's Future's End. Number 4 was Mcfleetwood in TNG's Manhunt. Number 3 is Catherine Keith Scott in TNG's Who Watches the Watchers. Number 2, Michael Mckeon in Voyager's The Thaw. And number 1, Joan Collins in The City on the Edge of Forever.
Fantastic. So you had 2 from TNG, 2 from Voyager, and 1 from TOS. That is spreading it around pretty good. And
I tried.
That's really good. And then Peter, recap your picks.
Sure. My number 5 pick is Aldous Hodge from Short Trek's Calypso. My number 4 pick is Michael Mckeon from Voyager's The Thaw. My number 3 pick is Joan Collins from The City on the Edge of Forever. My number 2 pick is Gene Simmons from TNG's The Drumhead. And my number 1 pick is Harris Yulin from DS9's Duet.
Fantastic. So you spread it around. You had 5 different incarnations of Trek. That Aldous Hodge pick blew me away. So you had a Short Trek,
well done,
Voyager, TOS, TNG, and Deep Space Nine. I did not spread it around. So my 5 were Stephen Root as Captain Kavada on TNG's Unification. Number 4 was Jason Alexander in the Think Tank as Kuros from Voyager. Number 3 was Kirsten Dunst as Hedril in Dark Page from TNG. Number 2, Scott Thompson as Timon, Someone to Watch Over Me from Voyager. And my number 1 also from Voyager, Ed Begley Jr. as Henry Starling. And I had 3 from Voyager and 2 from TNG, so I did not spread it around. Let's break down some stats. That was pretty even. We had 8 men chosen, 6 women, and 1 big question mark. We're not going to gender the Antedian. We have no idea what that is.
That's a very good call.
And then we've got 6 humans and 9 aliens, including no duplicate aliens. So we had a Klingon, an Antedian, a computer program, a Mintakan, a Cardassian, and a few others. So
cool.
2 duplicates, which I would have said, that's about right, I guess. I mean, could have gone either way with duplicates. And then we did not spread it around. This is crazy. And maybe this is because the Trek that didn't get a lot of picks here is some of the more serialized stuff. So maybe that had something to do with it. We had 1 Short Trek's pick and 1 from Deep Space Nine. And then probably the shows that are the least serialized are TOS, TNG, and Voyager. And we had 2 from TOS, 5 from TNG, and 6 from Voyager. So interesting. I'm wondering,
that is.
Might be, there might be a correlation there to the fact that those are a little bit more standalone-ish episodes. Okay, amazing. I love that stat breakdown. But as always, we have been hit by a temporal distortion. So before we get apart, it's time to hear from you.
The temporal distortions are fracturing space-time throughout the ship.
Cause?
Unknown.
Oh, we know the cause, Mr. Tuvok. It's all the amazing feedback that we continue to receive from our listeners here at TrekRanks. And this week's Temporal Distortion to send us back to episode 127 and our top 5 Voyager underrated. That's appropriate for our topic tonight. And we got a great voicemail in from our friend Melanie over at the First Flight podcast. We talked about that earlier because Peter was on their show. And we're going to play that for you right now.
Hi, Jim. This is Melanie from the First Flight podcast with my 5 underrated Voyager. Number 5, production design. I'm choosing Satan's robot. I think he's absolutely hilarious. I love that creation. And my favorite part is when he says, delete this guy. Number 4, performer, creative. I'm choosing Tim Russ. He gave such a magnificent portrayal as Tuvok. I think it's really underrated, doesn't get enough love, just fantastic, and I love the character and what he brought to the role. Number 3, Dabo wildcard round. Well, it wouldn't be Voyager without me talking about One Small Step. Such a fantastic episode, and I just love Lieutenant John Kelly, the writing, the acting. Grab the tissues. So good. Number 2, character. I'm choosing Chakotay. I am a big Chakotay fan. I also think he doesn't get enough credit for the amazing character. He's such a great first officer. I love the wisdom and the groundedness that he brings, the spirituality, him being a foil for Janeway, calling her out when it needs to happen. He's just wonderful. Love Chakotay. And number 1, episode. I'm choosing Heroes and Demons from the first season. I just think it's a great episode. It's a great holodeck episode, a wonderful showcase for Robert Picardo. Just one of my all-time favorites that I don't think gets mentioned enough. And for secondary system, I just want to give a shout out to Kes and Jennifer Lean. She gave a real nuanced performance. I really enjoyed the character and would have loved to have seen more. So those are my picks for Voyager Underrated. Thank you so much for TrekRanks. It's so awesome, and live long and prosper.
All right, awesome list from Melanie. Especially love those top 2 picks that she picked Chakotay as her underrated character. I love me some Chakotay.
Yep.
He gets a bad rap. And then her number 1 Voyager underrated episode was Heroes and Demons. And I think that's just a cool deep cut pick, because that's an underrated episode. I think it's fun. Might watch it tonight. Okay, those picks, more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's Temporal Distortion. So as always, I want to thank everyone for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Please keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks. We can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you, so put together your own list of top 5 one-off guest stars or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call to Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527, or you can just record a message and then DM me and link me, and we can do it that way. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on a next episode of TrekRanks, and on the next episode of TrekRanks, it's that time again. We have another season of Trek coming to a close. And this time it is Discovery Season 4. So we're doing our top 5 Discovery Season 4 moments. And we know we always break down our seasons with different categories. The one episode, a Dabo round, character, actor, production design choice. So whatever you want to pick. So Charlynn and Peter. We're not quite through Discovery Season 4 yet. We've seen, I think there's 3 episodes left as we record this. But as of right now, what is one thing you would highlight as a favorite moment from Discovery Season 4, Charlynn?
It's got to be Dr. Culber.
Oh.
He is just killing it this season. We are having discussions about mental health and what it means to help the helpers. We are going to so many places that I really am so excited about this show going to. It's far more interesting to me than the overall story arc. That's, action and adventure in the galaxy is at stake. I don't care. I want to hear people talking.
I love it.
I want people working through their shit. And Culber is there to help. And he's just doing such a cool thing. And what they're doing with that character right now makes me so happy.
That is a cool pick. It is. It definitely stands out in this season. Peter, how about you? If you had to choose one thing.
So far, thinking of the scene. I think it's in But to Connect, which was in the when everybody was trying to decide what to do. So there was just a lot of debate. It's almost like a United Nations scene in which all the different representatives were going back and forth. And that one kind of stood out to me as from season 4 as what they're trying to do too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But to Connect's definitely a high point for the season. Yeah, I really like that episode. Okay, awesome. Looking forward to that one. So before we wrap it up, a huge thanks to Charlynn Schmiedt and Peter Hong. It was awesome having you guys on the show.
I was wondering if you could show me how to access these subspace communications logs.
And we're going to do that right now, Mr. Neelix. So any final Trek subspace communications, either one you want to relay before we depart? Char.
Just want to say thanks again for having me back. And Peter, it was great to virtually meet you and do this podcast with you. I was really curious as to how this list would go, if we would have a ton of the same picks or if we would be all over the place, because there's just so many people you can choose from. I'm so glad, Jim, that you're going to do more of these.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun one. And I'll be curious to see how it plays out. I have to figure out how to do it because I don't want to, it's a little much to maybe tell everybody, hey, here's 15 names you can't pick. So I have to figure that part out. But
I don't know. That might make it more of a fun challenge where you have to make deeper cuts.
Yeah, maybe that's I think that's what we'll have to do. So get ready. Whoever's going to be on that show, you're going to have even extra homework.
We got the easy part.
I love it. Peter, how about you, man? Well, how about when I get to version 3, it'll be here's 30 names you can't pick. So
each step is more and more, 15 more.
I love it. Peter, thanks for coming on, man. It's great to have you on. Finally.
Yeah, sure. It's great. No, thank you very much for having me. I just want to give a quick thank you for Melanie and Abby over at First Flight Podcast. They introduced me to the Trek podcast guest experience recently, and they provided encouragement and advice. So, thanks a lot, Melanie and Abby. And thank you very much for Jim, for inviting me. Charlynn, it was great to meet you as well and to talk with both of you about Star Trek. I, really excited when I got the, when you DM'd me and, asked if that was of interest. So I really had a great time talking and just like you said at the beginning, sort of just chatting about Star Trek.
Love it. Thanks for coming on, Peter. We love Abby and Melanie, 2 frequent guests here, and love their show here on the Tricorder Transmissions. And I just want to thank the Astronomy Club you joined for introducing me to Star Trek. That's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Little did I know.
Classic. All right. Thanks, everyone, for engaging with us here on episode 131 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
Where's that funny man?
Mr. Tillman, please, why don't we sit down?
There he is. Ensign Paris, tell us another one of those hologram jokes. Come.
You've been stealing my material?
That guy's so lubricated, he'll laugh at anything.
There he is, the ambassador of humor.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
She lied. It was very un-Starfleet of her.
Starfleet captains don't easily succumb to fear.
What will become of us? Of me?
Like all fear, you eventually vanish.
I'm afraid.